The New Orleans Saints, man. So I don't mean this as any insult. The surprise team of the season so far, 2 weeks in, for what they have been able to do in these back-to-back 2 weeks. First week, they played Carolina Panthers at home. They give them a good shellacking, and you go, okay, well, it's kind of the Panthers. But then they bring the Dallas Cowboys onto it. Well, actually, they traveled to Dallas. This is a road game for them, 44-19. They put them on them in this game. So when you look at some of the top fives for the Saints, I mentioned how the trenches for the Panthers was bad and that New Orleans is going to be good. We're talking about elite. Look at these top two guys for the New Orleans Saints. Guard Lucas Patrick, 97.2. Eric McCoy, 92.2. That's beautiful stuff right there. Demario Davis coming in at number 3 with a 91.4. Chris Olave a 91.0. Edge rusher Carl Granderson, 85.6. And then Derek Carr adding another elite score to the list at a 91.0. Again, one of the pleasant surprise stories that we have had in the NFL 2 weeks into the season. When you flip to the other side for the Dallas Cowboys, Micah Parsons at the top of this list, 86.2. Tight end Luke Shoemaker with a 76.5 at number 2. Guard Zach Martin with a 74.9. Chauncey Golson, 72.1. Coming in at number 4, and then Tyler Smith, a 68.8. Dak Prescott, 53.3 overall grade here. I'll start with this one, Dalton, because I think it's the right transition here, talking about the offensive line. My stat that told the story has to be how well the Saints' offensive line is playing. Because when I looked at this team going into this season, I looked at a lot of question marks that they had. I figured that Eric McCoy was going to continue to be good. But what were you going to have at basically all of the other 4 spots? And 2 games into the season, one against a bad defensive line in the Panthers, but then another against one of the best defensive lines in the NFL in the Dallas Cowboys, you've got 2 games with a high level of success. Trevor Penning was the only offensive lineman below a 65 passing grade. It's impressive. It's really good for that unit. 89.7 run blocking grade as a team this past week. And then, like we mentioned, Lucas Patrick and Eric McCoy having elite run blocking grades. That, to me, is the stat that told the story. Derek Carr, his numbers are fantastic, extremely successful. I believe I saw a stat that every single time that the Saints offense has been on the field so far this season, they have scored points. But to me, it is the story of the offensive line for them and the massive turnaround that has been that is allowing this offense to truly hit a ceiling that we thought could be possible for them last season, and what made last season so disappointing for them. Now we're seeing it come to fruition in New Orleans.
To see their biggest concern become this much of a strength is incredible. And you look through it, if you go through and you filter in for offensive linemen, offensive lines, and which team leads the NFL in overall grade, their offensive line, it's the Saints. You see all the usual suspects, Philly and Minnesota and San Fran and Detroit and all the other good ones. The Saints are number 1, their offensive line in overall grade in the NFL right now. There's not even through 2 weeks would I have guessed that that's happening. But I think there's also a piece of this where, one, I think it is a line that leans towards run blocking a bit. Penning's a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. McCoy, the same thing. Maybe Cesar Ruiz, the same thing. But look, the combination of what's going on there, and then again, we mentioned it last week, Clint Kubiak with this play action game. Man, oh man. Derek Carr in this game, I got him 7 of 11 for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns and a 90.9 play action passing grade. This is just, you can see what they're doing right now is, so last year they were a big 11 personnel team, right? They still had Michael Thomas. They were trying to force him out there, even though he had the injury problems and all the money and everything going on with that. He goes, and you have now a group of tight ends, and you have Chris Olave and you have Rashid Shaheed. Mm-hmm. And they're running a lot more 12 personnel. They're running these tight ends. You got 3 versatile tight ends with Jawan Johnson and Foster Moreau and the king of versatility, Taysom Hill. So whatever you want to call, he's listed as a tight end, but whatever you want to call him, you can call him. But those are the players that they're using right now. Those are the personnel sets, and what they're creating in play action, in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field, it's lethal right now, especially if they're going to run block like that. So Clint Kubiak right now is in his wheelhouse, and is in the wheelhouse of every Shanahan coach that's in the league or has been in the league. His dad, Gary, which is just spectacular, did the same thing for all those years, especially with Baltimore. Mm-hmm. They're the masters of using tight ends and using play action and doing all those things, and Carr is responding in the biggest way. And I'm going to skip to my most impressive here real quick as it goes with the passing game. How about Rashid Shaheed? Second straight game with a 50-plus yard touchdown, 4 catches, 96 and a touchdown. And I think that speed threat, you have that guy, because Olave is one of the best intermediate receivers in the league. One of like the 2 or 3 best.
I think you do it all, but yes, to your point, yes.
But this is just what the numbers have shown us through the first 2 years. Is in that intermediate range, he's like one of the 2 or 3 best. He's like up there with Brandon Ayuk is up there, Justin Jefferson. Well, he's up there on every board.
I put Chris Godwin up there too.
We'll get there. Don't you worry with Chris Godwin. But Shaheed takes the top off, and he started to do it last year. Look, the last 2 years he's tied for the league lead in deep receiving grade, perfect 99.9. And I would guarantee, I haven't looked at that, but I guarantee he's doing it again after the first 2 weeks. And you were playing around with a graphic yesterday that I think had him side by side with Deshaun Jackson.
Young Deshaun Jackson, baby.
I mean, that's high praise.
It is.
But that's what he's doing for this offense right now. For him to take the top off. If you go single high and you want to load the box, I don't know. There's many corners in the league that could run with Rashid Shaheed.
Right.
If any, he's blazing fast, and Carr is letting it rip when he's getting down the field one-on-one. This is a guy who really balances their offense, and I'm super impressed through 2 weeks.
No, he has been awesome. My most impressive, I'll go with Alvin Kamara. I didn't know how much juice he had left in the tank. And look, when you're running behind an offensive line like that, it gets a little bit easier to do. But Kamara, what do you have, 4 touchdowns on Sunday?
I believe so, yeah.
65 receiving yards, 115 rushing yards. I mean, it's just, again, it's not like his PFF grades aren't like world beating. Obviously, we didn't see him in the top 5 there. It's because the offensive line's doing a lot of the work for him. But still, now you have a veteran aware back who knows how to capitalize when the offensive line is playing well. And so when that is the case, then obviously you're getting that. I did want to just go back to your Kubiak point really quickly. When we were going through our division previews, and we were talking about the New Orleans Saints, I remember looking up this number specifically. The Saints last year, they ran play action one of the least amounts in the NFL. They just did not do it very often. The 49ers, with Clint Kubiak as their pass game coordinator, they didn't run play action a ton, but they were the number 1 graded team in the NFL in terms of EPA per pass and PFF passing grade when coming off of play action, when using play action. This year, guess who the number 1 PFF passing grade team is off of play action? It's the New Orleans Saints. So what we talked about for a team preview for them is coming to fruition immediately. They're running more play action, but it's not just more play action, better play action.
Working.
And that is what Kubiak is very good at. So you got to give him his props here. Most disappointing in this game before we move on, Cowboys run defense. We know that this unit can really get after the passer. They got a lot of guys who can get after the passer, obviously highlighted by Micah Parsons. But through the first 2 weeks, run defense is not their forte. 45.3 run defense grade in week 1, 34.3 run defense grade in week 2, so it was even worse. Oso Odigizua, Mozzie Smith, DeMarcus Lawrence, Eric Kendricks, all of them, not good run defense grades. These are guys that got to be able to show up for you, especially some of those interior guys there.
Agreed. Mozzie's the one for me because I watched all his tape last year, and he struggled through last year, struggled to get on the field. When he was on the field, that's a guy they drafted in the first round for that exact problem, because this has been a problem for a couple of years for them.
Right.
Mozzie's a guy they need to find a way to turn it around with him. Lawrence is going to bounce back. DeMarcus Lawrence, one of the best run defenders in the league. Eric Kendricks has had a long history of being good in run defense, but Mozzie Smith is a young guy. They really need to emerge in year 2, because that's exactly why they drafted him. The year before, last year, they were like, okay, we need a run defender. Let's take this really athletic guy from Michigan, Mozzie Smith.
Right.
And it didn't quite work last year, and it was just bad enough that he couldn't find his way onto the field in a starting role, even though there's not a ton in front of him. But Mozzie's the one that would concern me the most.
If you can't defend a run, you're not going to get on the field.
Yeah. No,
especially
for this team, it's already a problem.
Right.
I mean, it's been a problem for a couple of years. For me, I have the Dallas secondary too. I know Deron Bland is out, but I expected better than this. They had combined their secondary, they had a 28.6 coverage grade, and I know again, Deron Bland's a superstar, set the record for pick sixes, all that, but I still have Trayvon Diggs.
It should be better than that.
It should be better.
The floor should be higher than that.
There is a part of it, too, Trev, that looks like Dan Quinn and Mike Zimmer run very, very different defenses. And there is a part of it, too, that looks like they are struggling to adjust to a new defense. Because Dan Quinn was very single high, relatively simple, a lot of 1 and 3. Zimmer likes to mix it up more and change up looks and throw safeties around different places. And it looks like a secondary that is both struggling to adjust to a new system. So they have time to get it back together, but they need to be better than they were in this game for sure.
Yeah,